Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of our friends around the world. Thanks everybody for joining. We're coming at you live from HQ. Now, normally we do our AI series. We have been doing a lot of LinkedIn audios for what, gosh, almost 2 years now, year and a half. Today, we had the fortuitous event where Micah and I happen to be in the same building, but not just Micah and I, Mr. Adi Kuriganti. How are you, sir?
I am great, Kate.
Thanks for joining us.
Feel that energy early.
Yeah, feel the energy. It's a little bit early, guys. We've had a long couple days.
I haven't had enough caffeine.
Yeah, okay. We're gonna get you pumped up. We're gonna get you pumped up. But truly, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
As you know, we've been running these conversations remotely. We've been doing LinkedIn audio, sort of podcasty kind of things. To our audience that's used to just doing the audios, we're testing out a new vehicle or new platform with video streaming. There's some interactivity. As always, we want this to be an interactive conversation, but we're going to be asking some questions. We got some poll stuff going on. You can add your comments in the stream or in the feed there, and you'll have a live chance to have us respond to those.
Yeah,
we've got Simon and Jorge in the background producing this bad boy, and we're gonna have some fun. So
yeah, super excited. I'm happy to be here with both of you, especially to have a new guest we
Yeah.
can talk to. I always geek out about the product stuff, so this is my chance to like ask all these really difficult questions and put you on the spot. So make sure I'll get all my requests in.
Let's do it.
and I, as usual, to be asking the dumb questions. Par for the course.
So Adi, the first thing I want to start with is you've really been on a world tour of product announcements from Imagine in London and Imagine in Austin, and there was an Imagine in Tokyo as well. Talk about some of the newest capabilities and product announcements and what that's really enabling for Automation Anywhere as an organization and for our customers.
Sure, Micah. First of all, Micah, Gabe, thanks for having me. I've been on probably a 2-month tour, right? And the best part of it has been meeting our customers. There's a lot of excitement in the field, and it's we've been on this kind of innovation spree for the last, I'd say, 18 months, or all things AI and automation. So I think broadly, the big announcements were around our AI and automation enterprise system. And this is really enabling our customers to automate their most mission-critical operations using the power of AI and automation, because ultimately, it's the combination that kind of drives success. Some key new products, new offerings, including our new AI Agent Studio, allowing our customers to build agents that combine the power of AI in action. Things like a rebate agent, a special pricing agent, kind of different kinds of agents within their automation workflows. The governance around it. Governance is a big question for a lot of customers. So governance and data privacy. We also announced some interesting partnerships. So our partnership with Amazon around Amazon Q and kind of this concept of conversational automation. And then we continue to see incredible momentum with products we announced last year, and we're expanding with the power of generative AI, like document automation and some other offerings. So a lot of products, a lot of new innovations, all with the goal for our customers to do a lot more for their core businesses.
Very cool. I know as a father, you have no problem picking a favorite child.
Yeah.
In the same way,
Yes.
I think one of my favorite children of what has been recently announced is AI Agent Studio. So talk a little bit about what that empowers automation developers to do, even without a background in data science or expertise there.
Yeah. So AI Agent Studio is live, it's available to our customers with the 3.3 or the summer release. We're really excited about it. And our core focus with AI Agent Studio is enabling developers, citizen developers, to build these, cognitive tasks, so to speak, or cognitive automation tasks with, on our platform. And again, combining, as I mentioned earlier, combining the best of AI and action. So there are a couple of things that we've introduced. One is the ability to connect to any model provider. So any vendor, any model, any hyperscaler. If you were to imagine, you saw our partnership announcements with AWS, GCP, Microsoft. We also allow you to bring in open source, your own custom models. So that's kind of a big benefit for a lot of our customers, because customers will deploy on private cloud, public cloud, different options. Flexibility is key. The second is this concept of AI skills. And this is where you can, using kind of have three main components of AI skills. One is the fact you can connect to any large language model.
Yeah.
The second is to improve the output of these cognitive tasks, you need to connect it to your enterprise data. And so we introduced our own native RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, but also the ability to connect to hyperscaler RAG services. And the third piece is an easy to use tool to kind of basically do prompt engineering. You can write different prompts, you can test it, but then you can also include the context of the automation workflow. So things like variables and different types of variables, and you kind of test it on the fly. So that's AI skills. And then obviously the ability to tie that into your automation workflow. It's not only about a agent, but you can have multiple agents, what we call multi-agent orchestration. You can have that. And finally, I think a big part of this is the governance. How do you see, what's happening in the prompts, what data is being used, kind of the redaction of private, sensitive data. That's a big ask from a lot of our customers. Also making sure the right folks have access to this tool. So all the governance and controls that a enterprise customer would need. And so that's one of the big part of it.
So Adi, just to back up, so we started with the world started with sort of their introduction was sort of, let's say, ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You write a prompt, you get an answer. Since then, so for my sake, for my mom's sake, what's the difference between just like prompting and an agent?
Yeah. I think the core difference is obviously an AI agent uses a lot of the same constructs of you got to connect to a large language model. You have, you do prompt engineering, writing different types of prompts, but has additional capabilities like having the context of your business data, right? Your enterprise data, like what's flowing in an automation workflow. Also with ChatGPT, obviously you're using OpenAI. Here you can use any model because we believe that different models will benefit different use cases. It's not going to be one model to rule them all. And even within a given vendor, you'll have different model types that would be appropriate for different use cases. But then the other big piece is you got to connect it to action, right? You might use ChatGPT to search the enterprise web and what's the best recipe for making creme brulee, maybe, I don't know. But this is about enterprise context. How do I build a product recall process, and how do I figure out what's the right replacement product, for example, when a certain product is not being sold anymore. So that's more enterprise context, and then you have to take action on it. So you might need to process an order in SAP. And so it's combining the AI, the skill, and all the prompt tuning and engineering, but with the action, which is again the core of the automation platform.
Right.
And so again, we're building this to enable our customers to run power their most mission critical operations. It's now obviously a consumer aspect, but it's using a lot of the ease of use and kind of the constructs of ChatGPT to make it easy, but really in the enterprise context.
But it's also the differentiation, I think, is this idea of there's personal productivity, if you will. I think we've all seen the multitude. I mean,
Yeah.
Everything's an AI company where it's like, hey, take this big document and turn it into a presentation for me. Cool.
Yeah.
But to me, that's like this proliferation of like just a bunch of independent, stuff that lives on people's desktops. So as an IT person, I'd be worried about that, number one. But also, that's like a one-to-one kind of solution versus what you're talking about, where you've got, say a shipping and receiving process, where you've got when the truck hits the dock, all these things have to happen to get that item on the shelf or get it shipped to the customer. More importantly, there's a bunch of things that need to happen at an enterprise level. I just saw a use case with a new customer where they're turning trucks around at the dock 50% faster because of all the complexity that existed previously, and now with our AI and automation enterprise solution or system, 50% faster. Imagine what that means to the growth and bottom line, right? It's not just about like FTE savings or some sort of ROI number. It's much bigger than that, and that's enterprise grade outcomes is what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's a big part, and kind of translating that into customer examples. You do a prior auth for patient registrations. How do you drive better patient experience when they come into a hospital, or you drive much faster turnaround in pre-approvals on a loan application, right? Or a warehousing example where how do you get that truck to get out of the warehouse quickly so that they can get to the retailer sites? All the automation processes we're talking about are multi-application, long-running, complex. Not saying that personal productivity is bad. I mean, there are a lot of
Sure.
great startups that are out there for personal productivity. Summarizing my email, which we also do. Building my PowerPoint, which is great. But this is about more than that. It's about really driving outcomes for our customers' operations, for customers' businesses, and then obviously for their end customers, to helping them drive a much better experience and outcomes for their customers.
Yeah, I like that, especially with the long running processes and these complex workflows. It's not just about do this thing, do this thing. There's decision points where there's some dynamic responses that need to come out.
It's the orchestration across all that.
Absolutely. And I think the really important part that you mentioned, I don't know how familiar our audience is or Gabe's mom, but like with retrieval augmented generation and this enterprise knowledge that we're talking about, what do we really mean? It means connecting the large language models to your data. So that could be PDFs, websites, it could be a database, but it's really connecting it to your data. So if we think about marketing, the way that your company talks about your product or your solution, if we talk about customer service, it's like all of our KB articles or all of our tickets that have been solved previously, using all of that to help us answer questions in the future. Because an LLM is incredibly powerful, but it's been trained on like the entirety of the internet, not on our company's data, our way of doing things. And so I think that's a really important thing for people to consider as they think about these AI agents. Now, to be very clear, your AI agent does not have to use retrieval augmented generation, and it doesn't have to use this enterprise knowledge, but it can. And that's an option for you. There will be use cases where I just need to build a prompt. I want to put some variables in it. I want to do some of the data masking that you talked about to make sure a social security number or an account number or something like that doesn't make its way to the model. But that gives me that kind of flexibility. The other thing I really like about this, and I want to ask a question here of the audience as well. I really like the ability to change model connections with a single prompt, right? So I can try it, I can build it out, I can tune it, see what my results are, all from this one interface. But then I can switch the model and I can switch to something else, because cost of tokens is going to be something that I really need to consider as an automation program leader. And so can I get the same result with GPT-3 or 3.5 that I could get with 4? And like dependent on what my use case is and what kind of data I'm sending as a part of that prompt, I can tune my results a little bit and kind of play around with that.
And that was really important for our customers. One of the reasons we built in, not only different model connections, but model choice and flexibility is, as you said, you got to balance efficacy with cost. And just because you're the largest model doesn't mean you're the best. Smaller models are great for, many use cases. And you also, for many of our customers, especially in highly regulated industries, they need models that they can host on-prem. They even need to connect it to their own custom models. And some kind of financial services companies, they build their own custom fine-tuned models, right? So you need to give that flexibility and choice for our large enterprise customers, and that's kind of what we've kind of set out to do.
So for our audience, which aspect of AI Agent Studio would you say interests you the most? I think about building custom agents. I think about being able to test and tune the prompts. I think about connecting to different AI models. I think about the built-in security and governance with data masking. Give me some shout outs. What are the things that you're
Can I just say all of the above?
Yeah, or all of the above would be another option.
E.
I want to hear from our audience. Like what of those gets you the most excited about being able to start to use and implement some?
It's like when I took the SAT and I was like, okay, A, and then I'm going to go C, and then the next one would be.
What is your score?
And just
because they clearly wouldn't do all of it. So I got to mix this up.
There's no way.
So Adi, the AI landscape, and while we wait for some answers here, the AI landscape is obviously continuously evolving, and even this live stream will probably be quite dated 6 months from now because things will change. How is Automation Anywhere staying agile to some of these emerging technology and changing customer needs?
So there are a lot of different ways. And by the way, this is a super exciting time, right? And I think it's been so for the last couple of years. It's not, I would say not 6 months, every few weeks, every month. Long-term roadmap planning is kind of out of the door. You have to be super agile. And I think having a cloud native platform with, so much data, but also the speed and flexibility to roll out 4 times a year, but also monthly releases allows us to move in
Yeah.
different directions. Um, I think the couple of ways that we are always are fine tuning, to use that word, our roadmap. One is obviously always thinking about the customer outcomes. What are our customers trying to do? They're trying to run their most mission critical processes and operations. How can we help them do it faster, better, and safer? The second piece, though, is we have very strong partnerships with our hyperscaler partners. We are launch partners with Google, with AWS, and we also partner very closely with Microsoft. A lot of our initial products, in fact, we're using Microsoft, but also startups. You'll find that we're in Silicon Valley. There's thousands of startups are being built out. We actively partner with them. And I think you need to have the diversity of who you're partnering with to be able to move fast and also learn, because there's so many new concepts. If some of you might have heard about large action model 6 months ago, and now it's AI agents. Not everything is appropriate for an automation for a customer. So you got to also understand, you can think about what is going to drive that impact. And so it's a combination of understanding what outcomes you're trying to drive, with all the different technologies that are out there, technologies we are building, but also partnerships we are having. And a lot of the innovation is co-innovation. We do a lot of co-innovation and kind of fail fast kind of concepts. And the best part of it, though, is to put it in the hands of our customers, like AI Agent Studio, or before that, document automation, and see the results. We already have customers, like document automation as an example. We expanded with generative AI last October.
Yeah.
And we already have over 100 customers just using the generative AI piece. I mean, broadly with document automation, we've seen over 500% year-over-year growth in terms of usage. But just with generative AI, we have customers in production processing documents like mortgage applications, like warehousing contracts, like payment slips and other things. So we actually can see it live in production and keep on fine tuning the use cases we want to roll out. So it's a combination of factors.
Yeah.
And sorry, just with the Doc Auto and the generative AI thing. So there's a constant learning that the Gen AI is doing by running these processes over and over again and getting better at extracting. And it's already extracting at a super high level, more so than ever in the history of mankind, basically, right? But I have a quick question about that. So whether it's with document automation, I like to call it Doc Auto because I'm a Spider-Man fan, but in with this whole platform and this idea of choice and the myriad of choices and options and all these things, where are we seeing like the success happening, like in sort of a more pointed manner? What would you recommend? And we talked about this a lot with Pathfinder about whether it's quick wins or what have you, but where are those quick wins you're seeing in this new world with agents?
So I think in many ways, doc automation is a document agent in some ways, right? So I think starting with the use case, the outcome they try to drive. So if you're a customer looking to deploy AI agents, well, the first question you got to ask is, what outcome am I going to try to drive? So I'd imagine we talked about the product replacement. So when you have a customer asking about a product that's no longer being sold, well, how do you sell them the right product, right? So that's the example, which is very common and it's very manual today, because you got to look at different knowledge bases, and then you got to look at different systems to say, is that a new product available, all that stuff. So looking at that outcome and then combine the best of whether it's processing a complex document with document automation or building a custom AI agent to take a look at your product catalog to figure out what's the right replacement product, and then using our automation workflow to kind of orchestrate that into an SAP or some other supply chain system. Those are the kinds of examples that you can get going. And then now we've also rolled out this concept of templates, process templates, that helps our customers get started fast. So they can build a product replacement process with the AI agents, the document processing, and share that with the different departments. So they can build the best practice. And we are also, one of the things I'm excited about is we are also building out-of-the-box templates for our customers based on what we are learning across our customers. So they can take that and they can also build their own. And that's how they can go fast. Because a lot of this is, you don't want to spend 9 months building stuff. You want to kind of quickly roll this out. As I mentioned, products that we launched late last year, people are actively using it, and the growth is 500, and we are talking millions and millions of documents, and that's what we want to see.
Yeah, and just a completely shameless plug, when we roll out these new capabilities, cloud customers are getting them automatically,
Yes.
right? And we're putting out this training available on AAU, which we call our Delta training, so people can get up to speed with these newest
Yeah.
capabilities right away, because we're rolling out this stuff every quarter. And if you don't know about what's the newest, the best, you could be sitting on some features
Yeah.
that would have been driving value for you for quite some time.
Yeah.
So I do want to make sure that everyone who's watching, please check out AAU. We've got this new Delta training that we're doing for every release. .33 is on the way. We've got .32 out already, but check that out. It's a great way to stay up to speed with the newest and best capabilities and features that are being rolled out each quarter. Adi, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier. Document automation has been a super hot area and a really fast growing product for us. What types of complex documents are you thinking about people unlocking now, right? We previously couldn't do this kind of stuff in the same way. So what kind of documents are people processing now that they couldn't do before?
Yeah, so with the power of generative AI, we've really been able to expand the scope of the types of documents. Earlier, it used to be invoices and more finance documents, but now they can do contracts, and you can imagine the different types of contracts for different industries, supply chain documents, healthcare documents, and so there are lots of different use cases across the board that are now possible for our customers. So internally, just an interesting stat, as I mentioned, over the last, it's basically 6 months, maybe 9 months old, and since we expanded this, we now have customers processing more unstructured content than even invoices.
Wow.
Like 40% is unstructured. I would say actually, if you include user defined, which is like unstructured, 70% is unstructured documents, 30% is invoices. Now you think about what it was before October of last year, it was 99% invoices, and user defined was 1%. So we have customers again in healthcare, other aspects of finance like supply chain operations. We even things like resumes and in HR. So lots of different use cases that customers are now deploying and automating, because ultimately it's not only about extracting the document, it's actually automating the work of the process and tying that into your automation workflow. And that's what customers are now doing, where they're expanding the set of use or basically processes that they can now automate.
Got it.
That's what I was coming, like when we were talking about earlier, sort of the evolution from prompting to agent, et cetera, to complex workflows, agentic process. The idea is like, cool, it gave me a response and I like the response, but now I have to cut and paste it into this other thing, which it doesn't end up solving my problem really.
I can't scale. You can't do that at scale.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things I get excited about with document automation is, I think, again, going back to kind of some education of the background of this, we're really at Gen 3 of document automation, right? It started off where everything was zonal-based OCR, which means if it's in this exact coordinate on the image, I'm going to try to read it. And OCR is optical character recognition, so it's trying to turn an image into text. And that was Gen 1. And that worked, but your images had to be exactly aligned perfectly. And if they weren't, you're doing it manually. Gen 2 was more of looking at some key value pairings, right? I'm looking for the word first name, and then I'm trying to read something next to that kind of matches a regular expression. And that works really well if you have a structured or semi-structured document.
Like a form-based.
That's right. When we move to Gen 3, that's when we're thinking about like fully unstructured documents, where we need to understand the context, the content. We need to be able to read stuff that's spanning multiple pages. That has been unlocked now, and we can do those kind of things.
And I'd say spanning multiple pages, but also large documents. In the past, it was cost prohibitive to do 1,000-page documents. And how do you look across that 1,000-page document? Think about contracts. A lot of these contracts, a lot of great legal minds out there, they build large documents that most people don't understand. So you're going to look at these large documents. And so underneath the covers, by the way, we're using things like RAG and vector databases, all the other great technology, but the customers don't really know. It's all kind of packaged as one solution, which is really important because it allows our customers to automate and process any of these documents, but with high accuracy. This is not about extracting and processing, but also driving that high accuracy. So for example, we're seeing with mortgage contracts, what used to be with a lot of work, you'd get to 20 and 30% accuracy. Now you're seeing 70 and 80% accuracy, right? And now you're talking about Now you can automate a lot more types of documents and lots more types of processes, but also with a higher accuracy. Again, it's not meant to be straight through processing. We don't like that word, and it's not going to be that. There's always going to be human in the loop, which is also another benefit, because you always want your expert to validate some of the outcomes. But now you combine all that in an automation platform, and you can now automate a lot more of your mission critical processes.
Yeah, two things I'll reflect back there. Number one is the differentiator of using document automation versus just, I'm going to OCR this entire document and send the full thing to ChatGPT or Anthropic and try to ask a question. There's added value for what Automation Anywhere is doing here. It's not like all we're doing is just taking your prompt and all of the text and sending that as a query, because we've optimized this, right? And so we're getting better results, but we're also getting them faster based on the way
for the technologists who are in the stream, we use what is called a compound AI system. It's a bunch of different things that we use for our document automation solution. We have fine-tuned models. We're obviously using different large language models underneath the covers, because different document types will require different like a healthcare document, you might use a Google model. We also have validation rules, and a lot of these are pre-built validation rules, but also allowing our customers to build their own validation rules, right? And then obviously there's human in the loop. So it's an entire compound system that our customer ultimately just gets the app. They don't really understand, need to know about the compound AI system. And that's really important, because that's what drives the higher accuracy. It's not that we're just using an LLM behind the scenes and kind of providing the output.
Right. So I really like that. The other thing I really want to touch on again is CoPilot being a part of this process, right? The human in the loop. I think I've got 10 years in IDP experience, right? So I've been doing this a long time. And the idea of straight through processing,
hashtag OG.
Oh, humble brag. I never heard of it until somewhat recently, within the last couple of years, because it was never a thing that we expected a high percentage of documents to go straight through. There's things that we need validated. There's data that we need to look up. We need eyes on something, even if we think we got it right? So the nice thing about building your process to process documents in Automation Anywhere is you do have CoPilot, and CoPilot has also been growing pretty expansively over the last couple of years. Talk about how CoPilot fits into not only document automation, but also other processes where I might want a human in the loop.
So our CoPilot, again, going with the theme of automating our customers' mission critical operations, we think of ours as an enterprise CoPilot, which is really driving enterprise outcomes. You gotta have a lot of CoPilots in the market, right?
Everybody's got a CoPilot.
Everybody has a CoPilot, or they don't call it CoPilot, they call it something else, but it's really a CoPilot, right? Which is really driving a human in the loop, and mostly are like chatbot type, simple chatbot type engagements. Ours is about orchestrating multi-application workflows. So you can have our enterprise CoPilot, can put it in SAP, you can put it in Workday, you can put it in Salesforce, you can put it in Microsoft Teams.
Without additional licensing too, right?
You could just kind of plug it in, and you can put it in your custom application that you might build in-house. And really, our goal is, as we orchestrate these complex workflows across these different applications, how do you have a CoPilot that is, available to those different personas, those different stakeholders in their application of choice? Because the underlying goal was, we don't want the business users to learn yet another different application. They'll be in the application of choice, and we'll bring the automation to them. They will bring them the action to them, right? And so document automation or processing documents as part of the workflow and having human in the loop through CoPilot is critical, because even with a mortgage application or a contract, you ultimately need an expert to kind of validate, what's been extracted. And the beauty of this is, as they validate, our learning system is learning that. And so once the different experts validate, you don't need to kind of revalidate every time, right? And so that always having oversight, right, and enabling our business users to do more higher output, a higher outcome task is important, because what you don't want them to do is read through a 1,000-page contract, try to figure out, everything is good. You just want to get them the key elements that they can validate, and you can move on.
That's the key. I mean, that's kind of the key to anything, right? We talk about this. I've said this before on the show. A lot of people, like in my world of marketing and social, whatever, said, content is king, content is king. And I'm like, content isn't king. Context is king. What matters to me right now, and just get me there, right? And the thing I love about our automation CoPilot, and there's some great demos on YouTube, by the way, too, which is like, you mentioned the validation. So there's validation, but there's also sort of like, most of us have like some sort of approval process before something goes live. And the ability to not have to, industry term, swivel chair. What kind of, we're going to have a list of all the words that we use today that, you know, are jargon. But honestly, the ability for me to be, say, in SAP, receiving something, send it for it, say, hey, the agents have validated, but everything's right, but I got to send it to my manager for approval.
Yeah.
Am I asking my manager to log back in, or I'm just sending them a quick notification that comes up in Teams? They can do it right from there. So you're reducing all this friction of having to, again, swivel chair or log into all these different places, find the thing, find the notification.
Yeah, our goal is to bring work to you. Versus you go, you know, figure out which application you get into,
make you work to find the work.
So that's kind of the core goal.
I want to round this out with one last question for Adi, because I know we've taken a lot of your time. But for our audience, what's the first use case you'll be building with AI and automation, or what have you built already? I'm curious to hear. You know, we've talked about a lot of these new capabilities. Where do you see this fitting together for some of your first use cases? So let us know in the chat where you will be applying some of this stuff to get started. And Adi, the last question I want to ask you is around that same thing. With all of these new capabilities, how should we think about navigating the transition from traditional automation that's mostly rule-based and clicking and stuff like that to a new AI-enhanced approach?
I would start with, again, an outcome that will drive business benefit. And we see a lot of use cases in service operations, not necessarily for the end customer, in front of the end customer, but maybe for an agent or for a service rep who needs to work on behalf of the customer. We see a lot in finance operations where, you know, you need to do end of quarter books or supply chain, or you got to pay your suppliers, things that you need to do it pretty fast. Otherwise, you have account receivable problems and kind of cash flow problems. So pick those use cases that are going to drive that impact. And, you know, that's where you can use agents. And like I mentioned earlier, we have customers doing it for prior auth in patient care. We have customers doing it for pre-approvals on a loan application. So that's where they're starting. It's not the entire process. You can start with a piece of that process.
I think it's interesting too. I'm always curious, to our audience, put it in the comments. There's a myriad of opportunities. I've said this before in the previous generations of the company. You know, I'm fortunate because I got folks like you around me. I come up with a crazy idea and we automate it, and I'm like, cool, this is awesome. In sort of Gen 3 in our AI and automation world that we're living in now, the concept of automating the impossible is actually a real thing. There's so many things that were impossible for me and my team to get to, or many of us to get to. It's just that we couldn't do it, and now you can. But getting started, you know, if you don't have maybe the resources or the knowledge, I'm curious to our audience, what's holding you back? What can we do to help? You know, what are you hearing? What do you think is a gating factor? Or maybe there's not. Maybe it's just understanding the platform, in which case we got Pathfinder, and
pipeline's already full.
Yeah.
I think the best practices, and you know, Micah just talked about it. A lot of the best practices, the how-tos, it's not only about the technology, but kind of how you think about it, how you think about the governance around it, how you think about data privacy. I think a big question for a lot of our customers as well, how do I make sure, because we're talking about now data that is going through these, you know, whether it's documents or others, how do I make sure that data doesn't get, you know, doesn't go to the large language model and it's secure? So I think we're building a lot of best practices, how-to guides, and that will obviously help our customers. But some of this you also got to start building and trying it.
I think if I were to give 3 tangible takeaways for getting started in this transition right now, write these down. First, start with a process-first approach, right? With that 33, we introduced some new templates. There's some solution guides that we've already put on BotStore. So they're kind of pre-built solutions that are designed to have
an AWS Marketplace.
Yeah,
you know, in fact, we added it to AWS Marketplace.
Okay, very cool. So we've got those available for you already. Take advantage of those. But the reason that you go to a process-first approach instead of TaskBot calling TaskBot calling TaskBot is because Tip number 2, you need to integrate with human in the loop, right? No matter what kind of AI solution I'm going to get started with, whether it's AI agents or whether I'm getting started with document automation, I need that human validation to make sure that the decisions that are being made either by my agent or by document automation are correct.
Yes.
So if it's extracting data, if it's making a decision about data for a replacement product or something like that, I need human in the loop to know if I'm doing this correctly and to validate those results. I'm going to keep track of that, and I might scale back the human review element eventually. But as I'm getting started, I have to have that in place. And the third one I would say is pick with a low risk opportunity to get started with, right? Low risk, low complexity. I don't have to take the most complex use case right away. I also don't have to automate the entire process end to end. I could take a piece of it that requires my AI agent or LLM here to help me automate that. And I can start with a piece of it and I can grow from there. So a super easy way to get started is document automation.
Yeah.
With document automation and the Gen AI capabilities, you are getting started with AI powered automation. And you don't have to worry about like, well, the model connection and who am I working with and all this stuff. That's built into document automation already. So you select the kind of document you want to be working with. You select what kind of OCR model you want to use, and you select what kind of LLM and how you're going to do the generative extraction. There are pre-provided prompts for each field that you define, but you can also customize those. And it's a really low lift, easy way to get started with some of these new capabilities.
Yeah, and also just kind of add to that, you may not even want to pick the large language model. It's actually built in all, it's kind of seamless to the customer.
Yeah.
They don't even need to know what model we're using. They just need to know what they want to process. Is it a contract? Is it is it a supply chain document? And we take care of the rest.
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things about Doc Auto 2, by the way, is that point of entry for AI in enterprise. As we've mentioned, there's a myriad of things that are could be gating factors with security and all these different things, right? But with Doc Auto, not only is it like, I'm going to say easy in the relevant sort of context, but the actual impact. So it's not like, oh, I learned how to use GPT and I generated an email. Like that was cool. No, but the impact, the enterprise impact of sort of using this as your tiptoe into AI, but then having this exponential impact in one shot, like I think that's super cool.
Yeah, and keep the feedback coming as you guys use it. We have the community. It's a great resource, and this is going to be there's a lot of innovation, but there's a lot of change that's going to happen, over the next few years. So we'd love to hear from our community and make sure we're always kind of incorporating your feedback, whether it's in best practices, product, in other ways.
Absolutely.
Well, boys, it's been an awesome session here. It's great to have you guys in the house. Thanks for making time. To our audience, thank you for joining as usual. I hope you guys enjoyed this new format. Hopefully we get to do it again. The physical limitations sometimes force us into the Zooms and whatnot, but I know for me personally, being able to sit down with you guys is super cool. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well, and we'll be back with more soon.
It's fun.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, everybody.